Leeds United made the most of their second chance in the European Cup against Stuttgart, the team they say has more foreign reserves than the Bank of England. Leeds won 2-1 in Barcelona in front of a tiny crowd. Their hero was Shutt. He scored the winner less than a minute after coming on as a substitute, and tomorrow's his birthday.
Hello, good evening, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Show, episode number 150. I think it's actually about 157-ish.
Does that mean it's 50 episodes since we got promoted? Because we were doing that, weren't we? We were waiting until we got promoted to do number 100, weren't we?
Yeah, so we did like 99.1, 99.2 for ages, didn't we? So, maybe 50 episodes since we got promoted and how things have changed. So welcome to Talking Show. Obviously, if you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook or any of the other platforms that we stream to, please share the stream, show your friends, all that type of stuff, and get some more people on board. We're still growing our YouTube channel. It's steadily ticking over. We're starting to get a few followers, so get on there. There will be some more content coming when basically none of us are too busy to get around to doing it, because there's a bit of football on at the moment, if you've not quite gathered it. So yeah, we're joined tonight. Obviously, I'm joined by Rags. Good evening, Rags. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Yourself?
Would you like to tell everybody about how you've just smashed your personal best on your run, taking 1 minute off each K?
Yeah, just flying at the minute, mate. Just flying. Just
flying.
Wherever I can get a run in, I am doing, and it's all good.
So if you see Raggy running around the East Leeds area,
there is. I do get random people honking me, but I think that's just because they think, "Go on, fat lad," So and I never know who it is, but yeah.
Do you have a particular?
There was one today, and some beamer goes past. I have no idea who it was, but again, probably just criticising my physique.
Do you have a particular running attire? Are we talking? I've got in my head. I've got electric pink pop socks, spandex trousers, and like a vest. That's what I'm going with.
Not quite. But I am partial to the old headband as well. Because
love an headband, mate.
Yeah, love a headband. Absolutely.
Speaking of headbands, another man who I can really see donning an headband. Good evening, Ben. How are you?
My hair's not long enough.
Do you sport a headband at any point?
Maybe. If my hair grew, I would.
Yeah, but I think he's talking like Andre Agassi, like anti-sweat headband.
Yeah, look, I've got one.
Right. No, because I don't.
Oh, here we go.
Exercise.
We've got a live demonstration for those watching I'm listening back on the podcast. It may not be there. Mate, I'll tell you something.
Looks more like a snood.
Mate, you look like Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
You like to break out into Paradise City or something right quick. So anyway, I take it, Ben, you ain't got one of them snood things that goes around your head.
I've got a snood because I was using it as my COVID mask.
Multi-purpose, nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, talking about headbands, a man who possibly might have a headband or maybe doesn't have a headband. Mike, good evening, Mike. How are you, pal? How's the zoo going? How's the poorly kidney-ridden tapir or whatever the problem was? See, I do listen to what you text me. I am actually interested. Yeah.
I didn't know you were a vet, Gaz.
On my days off sometimes.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's ticking along. If I rock up on Friday and it's dead, then I'll be fuming.
Yeah. I was a big fan as well of your Steve Irwin post on Instagram the other day. I did do a particular chortle to myself.
Yeah, the little Steve Irwin gif. Yeah, we love it.
Yeah. It was nice.
Big fan.
And obviously, if anybody's watching live now, you will realise that we've got a special guest tonight. Now, this is a bit of revenge for me because I've been on Jonny's show a couple of times on Radio Leeds, and I'm always a little bit nervous because, you know, it's a big thing being on BBC Radio Leeds. So we brought him onto this rather mediocre podcast so I can turn the tables and just ask him loads of questions. So from BBC Radio Leeds, good evening, Jonny Buchan. How are you, mate?
Evening, chaps. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I can tie in with the headband stuff as well. I used to have I've got a mop now, but I used to have an even bigger mop. So five-a-side, used to have the old headband holding it against the forehead, you know. I've been there, done it.
Nice. Jonny, how are you finding the off-season? I know the Euros make it slightly different, but how are you feeling without Leeds United in your life at the moment?
Yeah, the Euros soften the blow, don't they, a little bit, but they also, I think, make us all appreciate how good we've got it watching Leeds on a week-to-week basis, because some of the football's awful, isn't it? And I mean England mainly out of that. It's absolutely awful to watch, and we just know that we're not going to have to sit through any of that as long as Marcelo's still there. So, yeah, it's softening the blow, but it's going to come around quickly, isn't it? It's only, now it'll be 6-7 weeks away now the start of the season. Pre-seasons before that as well. We'll be coming around in a month's time, so yeah, be back before we know it.
And how nice is it that this pre-season is going to come around, as it has for the last couple of pre-seasons, where we've not had to play spot the try list in the initial photos. Can you remember them old days of spotting the try list, and we used to have all this like zooming in and saying, I think it's Philip Casadio. Like, no, I'm not sure it is. And we used to play that game, didn't we? So thankfully, them long days are gone, if for want of a better word. You already mentioned Marcelo there, Jonny. The fact that he's still in Leeds and he's taking under 11s for murder ball and stuff like that. We're not worried that he's not going to sign our way. Is it the one it'll be done soon kind of thing?
Yeah, not worried at all. Angus Kinnear said to us on the fixtures release day last week, he said, as far as I'm concerned, he's with Leeds United next season. And he pretty much said, as far as he's concerned, he's with Leeds United next season. He said it's just a formality of crossing the T's and dotting the I's. He's the only Premier League manager who's not having a holiday this summer. Marcelo Bielsa, who's decided not to go back to Argentina to bother seeing his family. Who needs to see family when he can stay in Leeds, like you say, and do murder ball with 11-year-olds? That's living the dream. So, yeah, there's no doubt at all. It's just whether he's signing a 1 or 2 year deal, isn't it? You know, The Guardian had reported that he was signing a 1 year deal. There's been some talk as well, and some kind of inkling that it could be possibly a 2 year deal, which everyone would like to see, but he doesn't tend to do that, does he? So I think everyone would just be happy to know that he is focused fully on Leeds for next season. And if you want to ask him, just go to Costa in Wetherby. Just go and ask him yourself.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, my boss lives in Wetherby, so I get regular Bielsa updates from my boss. He sees him walking around quite a bit around Wetherby, bless him. So
yeah, Catherine Hanna also lives up at Wetherby Way, and her kids now think she's friends with Marcelo Bielsa because she always points him out every time she sees him, so they think that he's just one of her friends.
Well, he is. He's one of all our friends, isn't he? Exactly. We've really took him to our heart. He is like, the sort of, I don't want to call him granddad because that's a little bit unfair, but he's sort of the lovable uncle, shall we say, instead of granddad. Yeah. But Jonny, you were...
Sorry, just to interject, I nearly had an incident last weekend in the car, driving through, not even Wetherby, driving through Al Woodley, and all of a sudden my 6-year-old daughter in the back went, "It's Marcelo Bielsa!" I nearly crashed the car, going, where? It wasn't. It was just a bloke walking down the road in a hoodie. But this is, she is on red alert. She's on red alert. Yeah. So, we have been Wetherby recently. It's took her up to the... but yeah, unfortunately, we never saw him that day. So, she's on red alert, looking out for him.
Big shout out to Raggy's daughter, Moo. That's class. I like that one. Good wind up. Jonny, so obviously, out of all us sat here in our relevant rooms at the moment, you were the only one out of all of us who got to see the majority, if not of all, of Leeds United's home games at Ellen Road last year. And the first question I want to ask you is, at what point did it stop feeling like a pre-season friendly because the stadium were empty? And did you actually think, wow, Leeds are back in the Premier League and this is Liverpool playing on Ellen Road and there's no fans here?
It's been really weird. It's been really, really weird because I think what it's kind of highlighted to us as broadcasters anyways, you thrive off that atmosphere. And we all knew it anyway, but, it's really hard to get high for the highs, if you see what I mean. So like the big goals, you thrive off everybody else being there and that electricity that you get inside Ellen Road and the away games as well. We've been really lucky throughout all of it, really. The back end, let's not forget the back end of the promotion season. I was fortunate enough to be at Swansea for that moment in Leeds United's history that, it's akin to Strachan against Leicester, isn't it? It's our generation Strachan, or my generation's Strachan against Leicester, I suppose. And it's, lucky enough to have been there for that. So we don't take it for granted. It has been at times quite sad, actually, to know that people are sat at home having to sit in their bedrooms, having to sit and watch it on television, having to listen to poor punditry, and I don't mean us, I mean elsewhere. I'll back us up, even if you guys won't on that one. But yeah, it's been quite sad, to to see the amount of people that have missed out, and then also to know that there's a lot of people who won't ever come back. We've lost a lot of people over that time. I know individuals personally who have lost family members who they do go to games with, and now they obviously won't be able to go to games with them because they've had a horrendous 18 months or so. So it's been really sad. There have been some games that have felt, I wouldn't say pre-season wise, because it has always been the case of going, oh look, there's so and so. Oh look, there's so and so. These big star players that we haven't been able to see at Ellen Road for 16 years. So it's been a long season, really enjoyable. We're really fortunate to be there. But I tell you what, that final game against West Brom, I've been inside Ellen Road when it's been full to the rafters hundreds and hundreds of times, but that felt like it was full to the rafters. The noise was absolutely incredible. I don't know if any of you were there and managed to be lucky enough in the ballot. Yeah, it was, wasn't it, Raggy? It was the atmosphere was amazing, and it was emotional. It was genuinely emotional. There were times pre-game when I was broadcasting and had to almost take a slight pause just to go, okay, let's, keep your head on here, or hand to Noel, hand to Poppy. It was emotional for all of us that people were back in. And it must have been the same for you as well, having been away for so long.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, give ourselves plenty of time. So we got in there really early, like one of the, and as it filled up everything like that, it was a strange way, because it almost felt like the beginning of a season. Didn't feel like the end of a season at all, because we were finally back in there. So it was a bit strange, but in terms of emotion as well, obviously, with it being Pablo's and Berardi's last game, I mean that was there, and I just promised myself that I would, I'd sing for 4 people, I mean, like it's just and everyone did, everyone who got there was lucky enough to get those tickets. They did themselves proud, and we created a good atmosphere, and it just makes you pine for the beginning of the season again, and let's get as many people back in as we can. As soon as possible, and let's get that atmosphere back. It'd be great.
And if there's talk of Wembley having 60,000, it's looking hopeful, isn't it, that by the start of the season there might be close to capacity you'd hope. So I think the club are certainly hoping for that. I think clubs up and down the country are, aren't they? So let's keep his fingers crossed that it keeps going in the way it is.
Yeah. So Jonny, when you got into broadcasting, was this the dream job? Commentating on Leeds United, being involved with Leeds United week in, week out?
I think Poppy's job's the dream job, isn't it? Commentating on Leeds United week in, week out. My first game at Ellen Road was 95 against Sheffield Wednesday. My memory told me that we won 2-0 that day, and that Gary Speed scored a worldie, and I couldn't remember who scored the other one.
That might be my first game as well.
Was it 95?
I think
2-0.
So. Something around then. We played Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we won.
Yeah, we won 2-0. And my memory told me that Gary Speed scored a worldie, and he was my hero from that day on. And then when I've watched it back, it was actually Yeboah that scored a really good goal, and Speedo scored a tap-in. And I've only realised that a few years ago when I watched it back. Yeah. So it was, that was my first game. And, I kind of have been one of the lucky people who's known what I've wanted to do for, many years. So as soon as I realised I wasn't good enough to be able to play the game, I thought, well, how else can I make a living out of it? I know, I'll just talk rubbish about it. So that's what I've been lucky enough to kind of aim towards. And I went and worked all over the place for a number of years, and then ended up getting into the BBC down in Sheffield. And then luckily the gig came up to come back home. So I was like, if the gig comes up to come home, you head home, don't you? It's like James Milner, if the opportunity comes back, come on, James, on you come on back.
How were it in the sort of Sheffield thing with? Obviously, they've got Wednesday United, Rotherham. Yeah. What was it like as a Leeds fan, sort of being in that environment?
Can I swear on this? Are we allowed to swear?
Absolutely. Yeah. We encourage it.
Because it's the one thing that I wish we could do that we can't. And there's certain words that you have to use to describe certain things that on the radio we can't. They gave me a lot of shit, to be perfectly honest with you, Ben. So when I first got down there.
We just said that word.
We up in Leeds say, the number one is the number one, don't we? It's the number one. Yeah. Down there, it's the number one, as you'll know. It's the number one down there, Gary. And I got so much stick for the first 6 months for reading out the scores at halftime or whatever, commentating on the game. Sheffield Wednesday 1-0 up, and I'd get messages genuinely saying it's 1, not 1. So it was one of those where they just never took to me for the first 6 months. Over time, they took to me. I was down there for 4.5, 5 years. So over time, they took to me. I never officially revealed on air who I supported, but most people could tell that I was from West Yorkshire. Quite a few thought I was a Huddersfield Town fan, which I was happy to let them think. I was like, you crack on, you think that, because it's the lesser of two evils as far as they're concerned down there. So feel free to think that. But whenever I went out and did events, the first thing people would say to you down there was, who do you support? And I'd tell them if they asked me directly like that. But the good thing down there is as long as you don't support one of the Wednesday or United clubs, then they let you off because of the fact that they always think you're biased towards the club you support. So for me, I wasn't biased. There were 6 clubs we covered and I wasn't biased towards any of them. I was equally harsh on all 6 of them. So I think that by the end of it, they realised, fair enough, when we're shit, you'll say we're shit because you don't really care because you're a Leeds fan. So I think most people realised it by the end of it, yeah. But it's nice now every so often to see people down there and go, how's the Championship going or League One going next season? Yeah, how's it looking for you Wednesday? Yeah,
I've had a lovely bit of bait today at work. It's been interesting conversation just rolling out. Anybody know when Papa John's Trophy draw is tomorrow? And then at least a couple of Wednesday fans going, yeah, it's tomorrow. And I go, I see, I'm not really that bothered about it. Yeah. Great. I love it to be fair. But yeah, I always find the Wednesday Sheffield United thing quite weird how tribal it is between the two clubs. Like, obviously, I know loads of Blades and I know loads of Owls, as they like to be called. And one calls one the Trotters and the other calls one the Pigsty.
Pigs.
Beautiful downtown Bramall Lane and all this type of stuff. And I find it bizarre, if I'm really honest.
It's a weird thing. But there's also an older generation down there that we used to speak to quite a lot. Obviously, we did phone-ins every night. And it was the original football phone-in down there. It was before any of the others in the country. 5 Live took the idea from Radio Sheffield. So it's 36 years old now. And it's an institution down there. Like, genuinely it is. 6 o'clock every night of the week, people listen to hear, get in the cars after the game, tune in to listen to hear what people are saying. If United on Wednesday lost in an hour and a half phoning, we could have 40 callers. I think the most I had was 42 callers, which is a ridiculous amount. So it's an institution down there. But there's an older generation that used to go and watch the other team when their team was away from home. So if they're a Wednesday fan, they'd go and watch Wednesday at home and they'd never play at home at the same time. So when Wednesday were away, they'd go down to Bramall Lane and watch Sheffield United, which I just find peculiar, putting money in the pockets of the rivals. I could never get my head around that. Younger generation don't do it, but the older ones do.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to start a rumour down there that there's some, because I know a couple of people who work for Wednesday, and I was like, mate, I've heard from my mate on Wednesday there's some talk that they might even really look at a merger due to money situation. And my God, that is like lighting a tinderbox. It's amazing. But anyway, let's not talk about them for too much longer. Obviously, if anybody's got any questions for Jonny, please get them in as we go. Just going back to last season then, Jonny, any particular highlight of last season? Obviously, just being back in the Prem was one, but is there any one thing that sort of sticks in your mind where you think, wow, this is different?
Do you know what? The opening day, I go all the way back to the opening day against Liverpool, and it was a fantastic game by the end of it. But it was more we were over there at Anfield, and it was more, we'd have loved it if fans were in, but it was more the fact that we were back at Anfield on a level par with Liverpool, and they were the champions coming into it, and it was then going toe to toe with them and seeing these new players, seeing Rodrigo for the first time, gave away a penalty and all that sort of stuff. But it was seeing those players and going, here we are, we're back where we should be and where it's been so long. And these clubs have moved on so much in those 16 years. Like, let's not underestimate that. That gap now is so much larger than it would have been if this had happened, let's say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. That gap is absolutely astronomical now that Leeds are trying to bridge and have done so well this year in doing. But just going back to that first day, it was emotional. It was exciting to be driving over there in the car, dealing with all the COVID situation. We had to go in 3 separate cars and meet in the car park and then do all your tests and all that sort of stuff. So there was the anxiety around that. And then getting there and you had to go up escalators, this brand new shiny stand-up escalators and all these sorts of stuff. We've just missed out on the press food this year. They're not providing food for us. That's the biggest downside of it. We'd have all been a stone heavier than what we are right now. But it was that opening game for me that was a real big excitement. That absolute joy of just being back there. I didn't care what happened that day. Didn't care at all what happened. And just the fact it was entertaining and Leeds actually took it to them was the biggest factor for me.
Yeah, like you say, 1.6 billion over 16 years out of the Prem. That's what you're missing out on. You talked about bridging that gap.
Yeah.
And what a job we've done. If a team's averaging 100 million a year for 16 years.
Yeah. It's okay. I've got Peter Lowy on the board now. He's worth a few bob, isn't he?
Yeah, just a couple. A couple. Yeah. A few questions coming in. Jonny, a few across a similar theme. What's it like working with Noel and Poppy? That seems to be a pretty common one. And what are they like off mic? Harry Chapman, former nominee of Shithouse of the Week for his lying to us last week about Rodrigo or whatever it were. So what is it like working with Noel and Poppy? Obviously, I've been very lucky to spend a bit of time with them. They're both outstanding blokes, as you are yourself, and Catherine as well. But what is it like working with them too?
Yeah, they're great. They're both great, and I would say that, and this is for me, this is the key to what we do, is that they are very much the same person on air as they are off it. I think that's a massive factor of what we try and do. We just try and be normal blokes who have just gone down this path of going into broadcasting. That's the difference, between us and anyone else sat inside Ellen Road or Anfield or Turf Moor, wherever it might be. They are Noel, we rein in a little bit, because he's partial to a few odd words and the odd comment that might these days get him in a bit of bother. So we rein him in a little bit, but he gets that. And Poppy's just a brilliant journo. He's someone who I've known for many years from a distance, and I've got to know him really well over the last 3 years, obviously since I've been back at Radio Leeds. But I've known him for a number of years as a BBC colleague, and then from a distance as well. And the fact that he's been a part of the Leeds United story over the last 10, 12, 14 years, a bit like Phil Hay as well. Guys who are, they've been there in League One at Tranmere on -15 on the opening day, and they're there now, looking at a European push this season. And, I think that's a big strength of what we do. It's those guys who have that rapport with the supporters. They get it. And that's the only way to describe it. They get it. Because if you Leeds, like Poppy doesn't pretend to be a Leeds supporter, he's an Everton fan. He doesn't hide that, but he gets it, because he's covered it for so long, and he's from the region in terms of where he lives now. He lives out Huddersfield way, so he speaks to the people on the street every day, and that's the only way you can describe it. If you Leeds, you get it, and if you're not, you don't. And I think what we try and do is reflect the fact that we get it, and we know what you guys are. Well, we like to think we know what you guys are feeling in those moments of despair. The derby playoff semi-finals. When you're all stood in the stands sharing tears with us, and sharing tears with us when Calvin's lifting the trophy on that final day in the championship. We just try and reflect that. That's all it is, and they're both absolutely brilliant to work with, and fantastic at what they do.
Yeah, and just going back to that, I think BBC Radio Leeds and even 96.3 Radio Air before that, they became quite a. See, I just rolled off a tongue. Become quite an institution in Leeds. Like certainly for me in my younger days, when I didn't really get to games very often, it was BBC Radio Leeds. It was 96.3. It was listening to Norman Hunter. It was listening to Eddie Gray. It was listening to Poppy and Brinlaw before and all that. And like for me, my match day routine, if I'm not going to the game, is I listen to you guys up to kickoff. But sadly, I have to turn you off because the commentary doesn't match with the screen, and it blows my OCD head off. Yeah. So I have to listen to the Pond Live talk about the game, and then at half time I switch you guys back on, and I work it a little bit like that, because I can't cope with.
And that's what we hope for, though, because we realise that we've got different audiences. We've got an older generation who purely listen to us for the commentaries. And they're reliant on us, and they are people who we really want to serve as best we can in describing the action and what's going on. And then we've got an audience who goes to the games, who might tune into us beforehand if they're not in Billy's Bar or over at the Peacock, and they might tune into us afterwards if they're jumping in the car and driving home. And then we've got people like yourself, like you say there, who will dip in and out and watch the game, or maybe there'll be people out there who can stream the games now. We try and cater for kind of all those audiences. We can't say we're just for those people who listen to us from bang on 2 o'clock all the way through till 6 o'clock. We know that's not life. That isn't how it works. I was the same as you growing up. I used to flip between Radio Leeds and Radio Air depending on what mood I was in. If John Bradley on Radio Air was talking about the pies, then I wanted something a little bit more about the football. I'd switch over to Radio Leeds. And I did the same. I used to go to the home games and the away games. I'd 9 times out of 10 sit playing Football Manager, listening to it on the radio before it was all streamed and all that sort of stuff. So I think that hopefully we get it, and hopefully people realise that we kind of get what you're doing, even if you're not with us for the entirety, and even if you never message us. We love it if people call us. We love it if people text and tweet us. But I think it's something like 4% of radio listeners get in touch with their local radio stations. So we realise most people don't, and that's fine. That's fine. Just enjoy it, hopefully.
Yeah, just on that one, Jonny, you've just literally brought a moment from back in my mind that I think I'd eradicated. You said then, listening to the game playing Football Manager now, I'm going to give you a little insight into what my childhood was like. I was a heavy WWE, WWF fan as a child. But then as I grew out of them and got more into football, I used to build Lego nets out of Lego, like actual football nets, and then I'd get off my dad, I'd get some sort of material that could act as the netting, and I would sellotape it on, so I'd create a net, and then I'd get a Sabutio ball, and I'd have the WWF figures as the players, and I would listen to the commentary and attempt to reenact the goals that were being described, and then watch Match at Day and see how accurate I were.
But doing it with Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior.
It's a true story. Randy Savage had an incredible XG rating. He was class. But yeah, isn't it funny how how, like, you know, and you guys are the same now for the next generation of Leeds fans, if you like. So, like, my son obviously listens along to you guys, and I listened along before that. And it's like, it's amazing how local radio becomes ingrained within the club, even though they're obviously a separate entity. And I think it's class, mate. I love it. And I think the fact that you do get it comes across, you know, you can listen to some and it's sterile and it's a little bit painful, and they'll have a you know, an expert pundit on who maybe played for 30 appearances for this club, and you can tell he's just there to pick up his pay packet. Whereas with BBC Radio Leeds, and obviously I don't listen to any others, you can really tell the difference. So get a couple more comments before we go anyway. And
but that's what you get, don't you? You get that as much as you're not speaking to someone like you. We're not speaking to Jonny or Poppy or whatever, but you get that sort of relationship that they're there every week, and they're sort of how they describe the game to you and stuff like that. And it's like your friends anyway, and then kind of like that. It's a really good.
That's a massive compliment, because that's what we try and do. You know, that's what we want to be. We want to be. You know, when people ask us what we do, I always say, and this is about our relationships with the football clubs, I say we're like the honest best mate, right? So if you've got a good mate who's going out with someone who's an absolute nightmare, and all your mates are thinking this person's an absolute nightmare, if you're the good best mate, you'll probably go to him, hard work, this and it. You know, not exactly, you know, buying into the group, and not exactly, you know, you're that honest best mate. And when things are going well for him, you'll pat him on the back and go, hey, I'm well chuffed you got that new job. You know, I'm really pleased for you. Or if they need help moving house, you'll go and help them move house. Like, you know, we'll report on the community stuff that they're doing. You know, we're the honest best mate. But at times we'll turn around to them and go, you know, you've been a dickhead, you know, for want of a better way of putting it, you know, and that's what we should be doing. We should be holding the club to account. I've got to give credit to the club as well. Over the last 3 years in my tenure, you know, they've been absolutely brilliant. I've got to say, they've been absolutely fantastic with us. We've butted heads at times. You know, there's been certain situations where I've said, oh, well, we're going to cover this, or we're going to talk about this, and they've gone, oh, we don't want you, and we've gone, well, no, that's what we do. You know, and we've butted heads, but you have a strong relationship so that you can butt heads, and then you make up, and then you carry on, you know, as you were beforehand. And, you know, we've got a new 3-year commentary deal out of them. It's the longest we've had in many, many years. And that's brilliant. And they've been fantastic from Angus through the media team, through to Victor when we've spoken to him, up to Andrea as well, you know, and they value what we do, particularly Angus. Angus really, really values what we do, because he's got, you know, a dad who listens to BBC Three Counties radio, who's a Luton fan. That's his lifeline to the club. That's how he listens to the games. That's how he connects to the club, and he gets that we have that kind of relationship with the audience. So yeah, they've been great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a long way since being exiled into the Peacock for games, where when we had a previous owner.
Then I was on the other side of the fence for that. I was a Yorkshire radio boy. That was my first gig in radio. I was a Yorkshire radio boy working for Ken Bates. Yeah, I was stood in the cop. Doing university, doing broadcast journalism at university, and I saw an advertising board on the side of the pitch saying Yorkshire radio coming soon. And as someone who wanted to get into radio, I was like, I'll have a bit of that. And then went into it down that path, was on the dark side for 4 years of it, and then saw the light before the iceberg hit. So
yeah, well, we were born out of the same thing, Jonny. We were originally of the same ilk until Ken kicked us out, and we had to go rogue on our own. But yeah, we were of the same ilk.
Yeah,
the fans panel, yeah. So a couple more comments. Big shout out to Andy Dorr, who took time out of his day to tell us that we speak some garbage. I'm a bit offended that you've said some of you. I'd like to think we all talk shit, but you know, we'll see. So yeah, last question then for you, Jonny, before we move on. Did Victor ought to make up for the lack of a home crowd? Because I could hear him on your comms sometimes.
He did. He was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant, and he always has been. You know, whether there's 40,000 there or whether he's just there on his own, but he did do his absolute best to make up for it. Whether it's yelling at the referee and the fourth official down in front of him, which, you know, at Ellen Road they're very close to that, so you can't help but hear him, or whether it's just, you know, celebrating late on in the game, or standing there to the very end, clapping every single one of the players off, cheering their names as they're walking off the pitch. Yeah, he's been an absolute live wire to watch this year, as they all have, to be fair. You know, all of the staff that have been at games, you know, some of the commercial team have been at games, and they've all been in the same areas, and they've all, to a man and woman, stood up and applauded and cheered and clapped and done their very best to, you know, make sure that this team know exactly what it means to them, but also obviously to everybody else as well. So yeah, to answer the question, he's done his best. I bet he's got a few lozenges, gone through a few lozenges as the year's gone on, I could tell you.
With that, has there been a bit of a perspective of football that you've picked up on, obviously, with the fact that there's been no crowds, obviously being able to hear, you know, maybe instructions from the sidelines and things like that, maybe picking up on things that normally you would that would all be drowned out by the crowd.
Yeah, you do hear a lot. Yeah, I mean, you hear that Marcelo can speak quite a bit of English from what he shouts out onto the pitch. So you do hear quite a bit of that. Depends where you are. Obviously, some grounds you're absolutely miles away. But at Ellen Road, you do have a pretty good vantage point. We're actually down in the West Stand now. We used to be up on the gantry, but we're not anymore. We're down in the West Stand because the gantry's full of the TV cameras. So those of you who haven't been back to Ellen Road will notice a few differences when you do come back at the start of the season, because the back of the West Stand is now all press seats, sort of to the left of the gantry entry as you're looking out onto the pitch. So there's quite a bit of a difference to that area there if you sit in the West Stand. So yeah, you pick up. I tell you what, you also notice, and you can't say this for the Leeds team, but there's a lot of rubbish. There's a lot of rubbish to watch. There really is. And sometimes you can get caught up in the atmosphere and you don't really notice that the game's a bit poor at times, or the opposition are a bit poor. But even in the Premier League, I would say that there's a good 10 teams who are bang average, which is why Leeds have finished where they have. Because there's some poor players out there, and there's some players who you can tell just do not give it, do not put everything in, week out. And what I've noticed as well with the Leeds team is they all, to a man, hold each other to account. Every single one of them. Jack Harrison and Alioski have been hilarious at times this year. Alioski playing a wayward ball down the line that even Jack Harrison goes, well, I'm not going to get on the end of that, am I? And they just look at each other, they call each other out on it. Luke Ayling's been really vocal. You do notice that individually, to a man, they are all at each other, regularly, to keep those standards up in a good way, in a positive way, to keep those standards high. And it's clearly one of the factors of what has done so well for them, this communication that they have between them.
I'm gonna segue over slightly with a look forward to next season. And one of the names that's been mentioned, and it kind of ties into what you've just been talking about, is the lad from Club Brugge, Noel Lang. Obviously, much talked about, highly rated winger, come through the Ajax system, and then to Club Brugge. I think he got 5-6 goals last season in Europe. But the reason I bring him up is talking about that ethos and that mentality in the squad at the moment. There's a few areas saying that he's got a little bit of an iffy attitude. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Giving the kid, the credit he deserves, it might just be lies. But do you think that the unity and the ethos and the culture in the squad is enough now that if we get somebody who maybe has a questionable attitude, it's either conform or die, for want of a better word, as in, like, you will either do what we say, the way we act, or you won't succeed at this club? Do you think that he's managed to harvest that attitude enough now that we can start bringing your slightly maverick players in?
I think so, and I think that's been proven with a few cases this year. Let's look at the Pablo Hernandez situation. Marcelo Bielsa, there was clearly a fallout, after he took off the armband and threw it on the ground. He didn't react very well when he trudged all the way around the edge of the pitch right in front of us and then kicked the water bottle behind Marcelo. That was the point for Hernandez where it really fell away from him, didn't it? His time at Leeds. And I think that shows that Marcelo doesn't stand for any of that. Pontus Jansson, I was never a big Pontus Jansson fan. And, as soon as he goes and sits by the advertising boards on his own, see you later, Pontus, off you go. This year we had the example of Rafinha, didn't we, with a penalty when he wanted. I can't remember what game it was now. Was it even the final game? When he wanted to take the penalty, was it the West Brom game? Yeah. Wanted to take the penalty, didn't he? And he had a bit of a strop, and he walked off to the halfway line as the penalty was taken. And I purposely, what I try and do as the presenter when I'm not doing the commentaries, I purposely try and watch the other things away from the ball and watch what else is happening in the game or on the sides of the game, so I can add that colour sort of to the description. He walked away to the halfway line. He stood there with a bit of a sulk on, and then he sort of, as the penalty had been scored and the players went to celebrate, he didn't run over to them, and he got sort of shoved in that direction by, it might have even been Calvin who was heading in that direction. He sort of shrugged him off, but he was walking in that direction, and then eventually he did walk right up to Bamford, gave him a hug, pat on the back. Everyone else rubbed his head, and it showed that he wanted to take the penalty. He was passionate about it, but he also realises that you can't be that individual in this team. You've still got to play the team game. Yeah. So I think you're right. And with Noah Lang, I know there's been some controversy about a few of his online comments, haven't there? Which certain parts of the Leeds United fan base in particular will absolutely not be fond of at all, and rightly so if they are, to be read as they were interpreted at the time. So you wonder what sort of impact that could possibly have on that signing as well there, because the club are very in tune with the fan base and how people feel about issues like that, as we saw with the whole situation with the Super Six, and the club reflected that really quickly very well, didn't they, that night against Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. So that segues on again. Transfer dealings next season then, Jonny. We're not expecting the inside track. We know that you guys have got the finger on the pulse.
I wish I could give you it.
But what do you, as a Leeds fan, away from BBC Radio Leeds, as a Leeds fan, what do you think that Leeds need next season to sort of continue this growth?
I think they need a left back. I think that goes without saying. Whether they keep Alioski or not, I still think they need a left back, even if they do manage to keep Alioski and he doesn't end up going elsewhere. Obviously, you can focus on that now. Macedonia are out of the Euros, can't he? So let's wait and see on that one. But I think they need a left back anyway. I think I'm not going to call him a weak link because I think that's very unfair to him. But I think not on his day, he could be that. You know, he could be somebody who you would go, he's not necessarily moved on to the standard that
he's
that
not
he
a natural left back, though, is he? So
No.
Yeah, we need that someone who's we're looking to step up a level. We need someone who is a natural left back who has the attacking sort of
who's
side
been
to
doing
his
it
game.
from the age of 14 or
Yeah, and has improved over that time. I think I would have thought at one stage they needed another Calvin sort of backup, but I think the back end of the season showed that they don't really, because of the way that we can see Robin Koch move into that position, and Pascal Struijk now for me would be one of the first choice centre halves. So have you automatically got that backup there to Calvin with Koch, because of the fact that who's going to be the centre half pairing this season? We don't know, do we? Will it still be Cooper in there? Let's wait and see on that one. I think they need another keeper to push Meslier, and that's obviously with the thought that Casilla, if they can get him out of the club, they will try and get him out of the club. But it's about whether they can. He's back end of his career on a lot of money on a decent contract. So you wonder whether they cut the losses on that one. I think a key role that they need this year is the number 10. I'm not the biggest Tyler Roberts fan. Anyone who listens to us will know Noel Whelan's not the biggest Tyler Roberts fan, and Steve, who's one of our regular texters, always reminds us every time he has a good game and says, "Oh no, what do you think now?" Then, which is all part of the debate, which is great. I'm not a huge Tyler Roberts fan, but he's obviously still got youth on his side and can still improve. So I think the number 10 role is key. Bamford and Rodrigo would be the ideal 9 and 10 there, wouldn't they, really, at the minute?
Yeah.
But I also see Rodrigo, with the way he ended the season, having a good opportunity in the Bamford role. If Bamford's having a tough time of it and not necessarily hitting the ground running and not getting up to 17 goals again, you would push Rodrigo up there, wouldn't you? And then you'd need a number 10. And I think that's the key signing for me this summer. I think that number 10, and that's not because I'm saying that Rodrigo shouldn't be playing there at all, because I think he should, and I think he will be a second season player. He's had a tough first season with the COVID and all those kinds of things. But I think number 10 is a key player. I'd also like to see another winger. I don't know about you guys, but I think a right-footed winger might not actually be a bad thing to add into the mix, to give a different option, playing on the left-hand side, coming in, giving different angles to things. A lot of left-footed players out wide for Leeds at the minute, aren't there? So I think you could maybe get in another winger with a right boot, and maybe even see one move out. You got Helder Costa. He's not really done it, has he, at this level? So we'll see him move on. I don't know what you guys all think to those, but I think there's 3, 4 there probably that are needed.
Yeah. No, I think we've discussed it at length on the show, and I think we're all singing on a similar song sheet. I mean, we kind of, I certainly agree on the Alioski thing. I can't speak for these guys, and I do agree, and we have debated and discussed Tyler Roberts at length on here as well, and his kind of suitability. I'm still of the belief that Tyler Roberts, for me, would benefit from a season in the Championship, playing week in, week out, in a 9 if that's his favourite position, or in a 10, and just let's see what he can do over a long period of time. In a team that plays the right way, Barnsley. In fact, not now. They've lost Ishmael Vallerin now, so not him. Yeah. So that's kind of where I sit on the Roberts debate. But if he's pulled a new deal, as Stuart Charlton's mentioned in the comments, then Bielsa obviously sees something in him.
I don't know. So maybe it has to be make or break for him this season.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
It's make or break, and if it's break, then he's got a year left. You get a decent price for him.
No, I agree. I think this year as well, there's a chance for some clever recruitment. I think. I mean, I saw his linked with Harrison Reed. Cut from a very similar cloth to Adam Forshaw, who's had ever since he came on our podcast. He's had a torrid time. Shout out to him. I think we broke him. That looks like it could be a sensible signing for me. I mean, I can't sit here and read off his stats and all that type of stuff, but he strikes me as a very similar Forshaw type player. Bielsa loved Forshaw, didn't he, before he obviously ended up getting injured. So, I think some creative signings. We could probably strengthen in a couple of areas, even if it's a player who can play multiple positions. Not for 1 minute saying Harrison Reed can play as a 10, by the way. I'm just saying like clever recruitment, I feel. But I agree with you, Johnny. I think the striking positions are sewn up with Bamford, Rodrigo, and Tyler Roberts, arguably, if he claims he's a 9. Then you've got Gellard and Sam Greenwood, who you possibly might think might go out on loan, maybe, or at least one of them. And then you get, you look in the wide areas, you've got Elder Costa, who struggled last year, very, very, very hit and miss. I know Raggy's a big fan of Elder Costa and his quite weak mentality. Rafina, one of first names on team sheet. Jack Harrison, when he's excellent, he's amazing. When he's not quite, when he gets doubled up on, when he's not quite in the game, I think he finds it hard sometimes. So again, something a bit different. I don't know. I think there'll be sensible signings for sure, and I think there'll be signings that'll push us on. But what they'll look like, I'm not sure. But left back in a 10, Johnny, I'd agree with. I think I'd probably very crucial signings.
I'd sooner see Somerville pushing for the right winger position than Costa personally. No. But again, Costa's on a long deal, isn't he? So
the thing is with Costa, I could see. I know it was a Bielsa signing, but I don't think he really fits Bielsa's way of playing, if that makes sense. You look at Rafina going forward and backwards. He's 100 miles an hour. He's aggressive. He's tough. He's got a bit of horrible about him as well that you can just see in his game every now and again. And Costa ain't got that. He's a little bit. A bit wishy-washy, a bit like...
We wanted Costa pre-ACL tear.
Yeah.
He did his ACL, didn't he? I think that your confidence will just go as a player, That's well documented.
So, exciting times. But, Johnny, next question, putting you on the spot slightly. When are we going to start seeing some transfer movements at Ellen Road, do you think? No, obviously, not thinking at work.
Ollie Casey's just gone to Blackpool. What more do you
want? Hold on, I'm on about incomings, Mike. I don't care about people going out.
What more do you want?
I think the Euros, it happens with every tournament, doesn't it? It slows everything down. It means that everything tends to get pushed back a few weeks. I think Leeds will look to try and get something done. You would have thought at the start of July, try and get some players in. Pre-season training will be back on not too long after that, so they want players in as soon as possible. And that's key, isn't it? We know how key a Bielsa pre-season training regime is, wouldn't we? It's not one of those where you can just kind of come in, drop in and get up to speed with it, as we've seen how slowly it takes some players and how long it takes some players to get into a side and get into a rhythm. So getting them in for pre-season would be key. You would have thought that, these players have been getting worked on by Victor and Marcelo and the rest of the scouting team as well. So it's probably middle of the season when it was looking very likely Leeds were going to be safe for another campaign. I think when you mention British players like Harrison Reed to go and sign, I think you have to be careful with that. I think you always pay over the top for him. I think you pay over the top and you don't necessarily get back what you pay for them. And, look at Sheffield United, the mess they made by signing a load of British players, paying too much and then getting themselves in trouble. And I'm not saying Leeds would do that at all, but I just think that the world is such a big place now. We've, every time you get linked with a player, you go, okay, so where do they play? And you read the name of the team they play for, and you go, okay, so what country is that then? Because it is one of those now, isn't it? Particularly with the way Brexit's affected things as well. It could be quite easy to be far-flung, South American players and all those kinds of things. So you just wouldn't have the knowledge of. So I think that they have to be careful if they are going to go down the British route, but you've got to give full trust to them.
Yeah,
okay, over the years there's been a few flops. If you go back across the entirety, there's been a few, haven't there? But majority recently have actually been pretty solid, good, strong signings that absolutely have improved the team.
Yeah, and I think Victor mentioned that on the Phil Hay show with the guys from the Square Ball. Yeah. He actually said that. He said not every player is going to succeed at a club de gutter for many different reasons. The humans are not commodities, so they might not settle. They might struggle with the culture. They might all these other things. So yeah, I mean, we're as guilty as any. We're all fickle Leeds fans, but I think he did make some mistakes in his early tenure at Leeds, Victor Orta, but they were probably mistakes that were driven by the identity of the club at the time, which were get some players in, sharpish, fleshes out a little bit. But I certainly think since the season we got promoted and even the season before, I think his deals have been absolutely spot on, to be fair. Minus Kevin Augustine.
Well, yeah, that's the one, isn't it? That's the one. Yeah. But again, that's, that was down to the individual, wasn't it? That was down to him and not necessarily being able to deal with the Bielsa way of playing and training by the sounds of things from what we'd heard. And, I think I've read earlier, was it 4 years today that Matthias Klick signed?
Yeah,
and,
it was.
Look at that rise that he's had. He's been absolutely instrumental for so long. Okay, he had a bit of a tricky patch, didn't he, last year? But he has been one of those players who, at one point, looked like he was going to go and he was going to come in, another Iguodala come in and disappear, and we never see him play. But he's absolutely having a huge impact, and has been a big part of what Leeds have done over the last few years. Hopefully, he can carry on being that as well.
Yeah, we're going to get into talking a bit about Euros, but before we do that, Stuart Charleston's also taking us on a trip down memory lane. A reminder of where the great club now sits. On this day in 2004. Michael Ricketts and Danny Cadamartri signed at Ellen Road. Not a single goal between them. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Wow. Dark days. Yeah.
And then the worst thing about that was Cadamartri then went to Huddersfield and turned prime Messi one day at Ellen Road. And I remember thinking, what is this all about? Yeah. I was sat in East Stand. Gary Roberts were taking piss out of a bloke sat outside of me because he was fat, and the fat bloke were giving him earache about having big ears. And Danny Cadamartri just ran the game, and I remember thinking, what's happened? Why are we like this? But anyway, so talking Euros, as Ben's bobbed up here, the ticker tape running across the bottom, it's currently Portugal 0, France 0. However, the big one, Germany 0, Hungary 1. Adam Salazar scoring for them on 11 minutes. So that's an interesting one, and it could obviously have ramifications for us as England fans. So first thing to talk about the Euros. Mike, how do you feel that Scotland won the European Championships last week, and now they're all back in Scotland? Well, they're not. They're all back in England because none of them live in Scotland or are even Scottish. Mike, how do you feel? Do you think you should have beat England at Wembley?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like, Scotland were the better team in that game. Everything that happened, everything that Scotland needed to happen, happened. We needed England to not turn up, not be up for it, which happened. You know what I mean? Scotland played out the skin, but, didn't happen. Obviously not clinical again. But the Croatia game, I was buzzing that we finally scored. It was a long time coming. Chance creation, again, I say, was never the issue. I feel like the Croatia game was the only game out of the three that I feel like the squad didn't leave it all out there. And I can say hand on heart that I've genuinely enjoyed watching Scotland. I genuinely have. I don't know if it's like, as we know with Leeds over quite a few years, being an underdog, there's a sort of thrill that comes with that. But yeah, no, Modric ran the show. I'd have stuck McTominay on him and just done a 10v10. But Steve Clarke is a very defensive-minded manager, and he likes his hoofball. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Mike, I'm
not mad. Modric is a class player, and
Going back to the Croatia game, Mike, from a Leeds perspective, why did they bring Hamish Macbeth on instead of Liam Cooper during the game?
Exactly. Well,
there seems to be a pattern developing. Wales don't use Tyler Roberts. Spain have gone with Eric Garcia today instead of Llorente. I know that Garcia is probably a more natural fit to side of Laporte, for example.
I said that.
Leeds players, apart from Calvin and Clicky, obviously, and Alioski, but the others away at other clubs have not really got a look, have they?
Yeah, to be honest, we could have had Billy Gilmore on as well. It wouldn't have changed that result. But
no.
Croatia, you need to win the midfield battle, and if you ain't got a Calvin Phillips breaking everything up and dominating the middle of the park, then you ain't going to get out. Cooper, I don't know. Obviously he's left-footed, but that shouldn't matter because the person that came off, Grant Hanley, was in the middle of the back three. So it shouldn't matter at all, should it, whether you're right or left-footed?
Now, I'm coming at it from a completely different angle here, but why is Grant Hanley getting in front of Liam Cooper anyway, for me?
Precisely, yeah.
Liam Cooper's had a great season in Premier League, really.
Yep, I agree.
Grant Hanley, I'm not so sure about, if I'm honest, but
Norwich.
I am biased, let's be honest. I'm incredibly biased.
The lads that came on, that Grant McKenna, I think he's Aberdeen. They're both units. They're bigger lads than Cooper. But other than that, like physical attributes, I couldn't tell you. I think I'd bring Cooper on, but maybe I'm being biased. But I think you bring Cooper on any day.
Yeah.
The defending is awful as well. It's sort of like zonal marking when balls in open play. It's ridiculous. You don't just ball watch, and it's like, oh, there's Modric on edge of the box there. There's three of us stood here like lemons. I had the high moment when it was 1-1 and you feel like, could nick some, and then Modric just turned on.
Cracking goal.
Dominated. You could see it was outside of the boot, and then it showed it the other angle. It's like, that's gorgeous. Like the keeper, even though he's diving and he's a big lad, it's just round him and in. It's fantastic. And then the corner delivery as well, just fantastic.
One good thing about Scotland getting to the first major tournament in 23 years, though, is the hilarity of David Marshall appearing on every single photo photoshopped, doing that thing again of diving into the back of the net. So I saw him diving into like Glasgow International Airport the other day. I saw him into like a train station. That's going to live long in the memory.
My favourite one was the one of like he's bundled up in the net and there's just a picture of that Spider-Man. Yeah. That was a particular highlight.
I just love the fact as well that anyone who's got any kind of Scottish roots suddenly turned into Braveheart or turned into Rod Stewart. I include my missus in that. My missus is half Scottish, half Chinese randomly. What a random combination! But she did. She absolutely turned into the biggest Scotland fan for that Friday night against England that you've ever met, and she really couldn't care less.
It's that thing of like, hand to mouth, like you don't know when you're going to be in it, and so everything is elevated. You know what I mean? But it was good fun, and maybe we'll bring a striker to World Cup, and I can see Scotland qualifying. Maybe if we bring a striker, get them new lads bedded in, and Gilmore, Patterson, and that could be interesting. But I enjoyed watching them. What can I say? I would, and I regret nothing. I would have rather watched Scotland and England. England got through, but I'd rather watch Scotland any day.
Right. Coming to our
Scotland's Euros were pretty much like the film Braveheart, wasn't it?
Yeah. Sad ending.
I mean,
two big wins and then a sad ending. Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well done, Ben. When we did the Scotland-England preview, I pitted Ben against Mike. We had an English correspondent and a Scottish correspondent. So I'm going to come to the English correspondent in Ben.
Oh, Ben, 4-0. Right. Make him feel like shit for that.
On that one then, Ben. Group football's over with now. I've kind of accepted now from an England point of view that, do you know what? We've qualified. We haven't been spectacular in any of the games, I don't feel. But we've qualified. For me now, Gareth will be judged on the knockout stages.
Well, we're going to be playing France, Portugal, or Germany, depending on even Hungary.
Hungary are winning.
It's now they have to put performances into win games, don't they? It's knockout football. You can, I guess, if you're playing like we did in the group stage, which was sort of try and nick a win, not concede, and try and nick a win for me. That's how we were playing. Agreed. We need to now obviously show what we're about.
Yeah, totally agree.
Do you think that he will though? Because I don't. No. I've got absolutely no faith in that whatsoever. And last night was case in point.
Embarrassing then, won't it?
But last night was case in point. There's no perceived advantage of winning the group because you don't know who you're playing out of the other group. It's going to be group of death. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't matter whether and because it's not. Because that's not decided yet. So there's no. He had a real opportunity there to go out there, and I thought we might do it with that Sterling chance early on and getting that, getting a goal and stuff. The second half, we posted 0 XG in the second half, 0.00, not a single chance in the whole second half. But that's the thing, like. If that was an opportunity for him to go out there and say, right, well, we're qualified through. Let's take the handbrake off here, and he's just petrified. And everyone said, all of this, when he was doing it in the qualifiers or the Nations League or whatever it was when we were playing Albania with 2 defensive midfielders. It's all about gearing up for when we play a better team. Well, I'm sorry, but why are we doing it against poor opposition? Make us look even poorer. I don't know whether Bielsa's just ruined football for me. I don't know. But like, there's no way that Bielsa will set a team up like the way he does, and it's just, and I just don't see it. I don't see us playing well, and if we go one down, I don't see us getting back into a game. We just don't have anything going forward. Like, it is so poor. And right now, yeah, we've had a moment of brilliance in that first game against Croatia. Sterling puts it away. A nice move in that first half again for Sterling goal against Czech Republic. No real moments of note against Scotland. And it's almost like, I heard him on the radio today talking about like set pieces. We have to improve on that because they will be the difference. And last World Cup, we did well on set pieces. And that's, I think, we're going to set up really, really defensive and try and nick a set piece. And that, for me, it's just boring. And I'm fed up with it. I'm just not interested in England right now.
Yeah.
So it's not coming home then, Rags, just to be clear.
I honestly don't think he's coming home at all now. And no, I really like international football, like tournaments. I don't like friendlies and the stuff during the season. I love international tournaments, and it has just been an absolute, from an England perspective, been an absolute damp squib.
I'm with you guys. I think that we hope that Southgate is going to take the shackles off a little bit. You know, we hope that he's going to just deploy Calvin in that solitary defensive midfielder role that we've seen him do a little bit, I suppose, when Henderson came on the other night, didn't we? And he pushed Henderson a little bit further forwards. You know, I think that's what we're all hoping for. But I just don't see it. I just don't see him doing that at all.
You don't see him dropping Rice,
one of the big teams. No. Well, I don't know, you know. I didn't see him until then he took Rice off.
When he took that, when he made that substitution.
He could have brought either of them off at that point. He could have brought Rice or Phillips off. And I thought, naively maybe, he's going to bring Phillips off when we saw that there was going to be a change and Henderson was going to come on. But he didn't. He took off Rice, which pleased me quite a lot. You know, Phillips is the only outfield player to have played every minute for England in the group so
maybe
far,
that's just his fitness, though, that
maybe.
He is that level that he can do that.
Yeah, maybe.
To be fair, Rice has got to cart that head around as well. He's got a good head on him, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Sniper's dream, that boy. He's got a big bulb on him.
Like the video of that Scotland fan that were walking across the road with his head tilted. That epic
Get hit by
the bike.
That fucking scooter. Yeah. But that being said, just because Phillips is fitter, it's not his job to carry the team, is it? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
sorry, I've just got the France-Portugal game on, and I don't know what's happened because I was just watching the podcast screen, but I think someone's got a penalty. Portugal got a penalty, and the players are chasing the ref around. He's just running round in circles.
Can you remember that FIFA game? Was it FIFA 96 where you could run away from the referee?
Yeah. Sort of like that, yeah.
Is it like the opposite of that?
Yeah.
So a few more comments coming in before we continue finishing off with the Euros and getting some more Leeds stuff. Liam G on YouTube says, speaking of Scotland, have you seen that Leeds are interested in a Celtic left back?
Is it Anderson?
Matthew Anderson is the player Leeds are looking at. He's called the new Kieran Tierney. So.
Yeah, there's a centre back as
well. Who were on loan at Ross County last year.
Norwegian.
Interesting ones. Michael Brown says, do you think that Robert Page should be given the Wales managerial job on a permanent basis, given the fact he's taken Wales to knockout stages regardless of what happens to Ryan Giggs? So, on that one, obviously I've spent quite a lot of working time in Wales, so I do like Wales and I do like the Welsh. However, I don't really have a dog in the fight with that one. And the only reason I would not want Robert Page to get it is because he knocked former Leeds United legend Michael Doyle's front teeth out when they played together. And he had to get some new teeth. So, but I don't know. To be honest, I think he's well in. I think he's well in for a shout. Bearing in mind, what could happen to Mr. Giggs.
I saw something the other day as well about how everything that's happening with the Wales squad now is testament to Gary Speed. He revolutionised that whole institution, modernised it, raised the standards. Brought pride back to it. So I think that was a little, heartwarming thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a legend.
So before we do get into the lead stuff, VAR arrived in the Croatia-Czech Republic game. If you saw it, when Dejan Lovren's elbow came into contact with Šik's nose, quite brutally, but it was never a penalty in a month of Sundays because he's not even looking at the man. He's jumping with his arms up to head the ball. Now, if they're going to outlaw bringing your arms up when you jump, football is going to be some spectacle when people are jumping like penguins week in, week out with their arms stuck by the side. I think it's actually not physically impossible, but it's near enough impossible to jump with your arms by your side and gain any height whatsoever. So big shout out to VAR. They've been getting it so right and then got it so wrong. But
they got it right today.
Until you see this penalty.
They got it right today. You see the Slovakia incident today. They got that absolutely spot on. The referee had given it in the opposite direction. It was a penalty for who was Slovakia playing now? Spain. Playing Spain, yeah. So it was a penalty to Spain. But what actually happened was the referee gave the free kick to Slovakia. The referee gave the free kick to Slovakia because the Spain player nipped in front of him, and the Slovakia player kicked the Spain player on the back of his leg. So the referee's initial thought was, "Oh, it's a free kick to Slovakia," and then as soon as you watch it back, you went, "Oh no, that's a penalty." And they made the referee go up and look at it and overturned it and gave the penalty. And Morata obviously missed it because that's what they do. They miss penalties, don't they? But you know, it was the right call, and I sat there going, "Off. At least we're seeing." I know what you're saying there about there being some poor ones, but at least we're seeing some good ones as well. Yeah. You know, the Premier League needs to learn a lot from how it's been officiated.
100%. Up to that Croatia game, I think we said it on last week's show, didn't we? The fact that it's almost like a non-talking point, VAR.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Like whereas in the Premier League, it's constantly referred to, and you know, it's everything, every little shout from any player, it's always like, "Oh, will VAR look at that?" And it's whereas this tournament, it just seems to be completely in the background, and it just seems to work a lot better.
The book is stopping with the referee, isn't it? And I'm loving that. The referees are showing some personality, and they're imposing it on the game, not in a Mike Dean way, but in a you play it. You know, the players are like, you're going to play. You're not going to dive around. You know, like referees actually gesturing to players to get up. You know, or no, I'm not giving that.
It's still taking a lot out of it for me. Like, I mean, you'll see when you're back in the ground. Like, I mean, the lines are horrendous, aren't they? The offside lines. Let's be perfectly honest about it. And it's that is when you're covering the games. That's one of the worst things. That you obviously can still have that joy of a goal. If it's clearly a goal, but there are so many that you go, goal, oh, is it? And you look and you're sort of all looking around at each other and you're trying to, and sometimes where we're sat, you can't necessarily see the big screen and all that sort of stuff. We do have little monitors in front of us, so we do get to see them a lot of the time, but you do just sometimes, it takes that real element of joy, that real element of kind of spontaneity out of it, because you're having a double question whether it is a goal or not, you know, like with Bamford's arm earlier in the season and all that sort of stuff.
It's just the bureaucrats of the FA and the Prem, innit? I mean, I'd go back to the England-Scotland game with the foul on, I'd say it wasn't given, but Raheem Sterling goes down, as he does all the time. And I'm saying, it's not a penalty for me, but in the Premier League, that's a penalty.
It's a penalty, yeah.
Oh, 100%. That would have been given as a penalty in the Premier League. I agree.
There was one on Saka last night, and he went up to the ref after, and he touched me, and that's the sort of
contact
attitude they have in the Premier
foul,
League.
Yeah. Contact does not equal foul.
Exactly.
Oh, just because there's contact. So, you know.
Absolutely. But do you think it's, I mean, I don't want to speak about, like, bias, but, like, the big clubs seem to get all the sort of decisions and stuff like that. Do you think in the competition like this, it evens itself out because you're just nations and there's no influence from a Man United, a Chelsea, a Liverpool, a Man City, who have that more pull on a referee and stuff like that, and they're allowed to just referee normally?
It's a shout.
I think that's called unconscious bias, Ben, when people have a pre-built opinion before they get it. But yeah, you was probably right, mate, with that. Probably something in that for sure.
It's like the old penalty at Old Trafford thing.
Yeah.
You know that if Man United go down in the area, they're going to get a penalty.
But they should. But the whole point of VAR is it should stop that.
Yeah.
The whole point is that it should then come down to the evidence on the video, you know, and whether they get it. You know, it doesn't come down to the referee just having 70,000 Man United fans and 11 players surrounding him giving the penalty. It should then go to the video, and you should be able to look at it and go, well, actually, no, you know, Rashford dived or whatever it is.
And that's where we've covered it many a times, haven't we? About sort of VAR. We need to have, they need to have the conversation that the referee has with the video ref.
Yeah.
And if he's saying, this is what I've seen, like they do, I mean, I watched one of the international rugbies a couple of months ago, and I don't watch rugby union, but they seem to have it. The referee says, this is what I've seen, can you back it up, can you agree with it? And then it was totally different to what he'd seen, because you got that many players moving about and something like that. And then I think a player got done for a shoulder charge or something like that, and it just answers the questions that we're still not getting the answers to.
Yeah.
Because you're still leaving a game and say, well, was that an offside? Oh, I guess offsides are a bit negligible. But like even fouls and stuff like that, was he actually fouled? Was it this or was it that? And if you got the description from the referee that I've seen this and can you verify it, and then you can say, okay, that's what they're going with.
That's all okay for people watching at home. You know, my biggest thing is for.
But you can have that in the stadium still as well.
Yeah, you won't be able to have it out though. You won't be able to have it panned out, coming out across the time.
You would?
They wouldn't though, because you've also got the risk of players around them saying effing this and effing that, and come on, you've got all that sort of stuff. So because I did it once before years ago, Elliot Hanley, didn't he? He got mic'd up for a game, and Tony Adams went over to him and was like, "You can't fight," giving it all that. So you just can't. That's why they won't be able to do it. You got kids in there and all that sort of stuff. So
they'd need to cut the swearing then, won't they?
Plus,
I
don't really want to hear Mike Dean asking the VAR official if he's looking sexy today, because that's what I imagine Mike Dean would say to the VAR official. When I put my arm out, then was it extra strength? Was it extra straight? And did I have a very masculine arm? Fuck off, Mike. It's not about you. Back off. Anyway, Leeds news. Let's talk some Leeds news. So, Ollie Casey's departed the club officially from the 1st of July. He's joined Blackpool on a 3-year deal. I think this one will come in, lads, to be honest. We discussed it before. He weren't really going to break through. He was at that age where, he's right stuck between he's not quite a 23 player. He's, if he's going to want to make a career for himself, which he is, then he needs to go and find another club. And he has done with Blackpool. So we'll have to see how that pans out for him. Good luck to him.
Good luck to him.
Yeah, played a part in the 23s winning the league. Yeah. Nathan Nandez, now a name that's come out quite a few times, Uruguayan midfielder who's been at Cagliari. Is it Cagliari? I always
Cagliari.
Yeah, that one. Massimo Cellino's old club. That's how I always remember him. And his agent has been speaking to LUFC Zone. Go check him out on Insta and all, Twitter and all that, saying that words to the effect of Nandez wants to come to Leeds. Now, he did say there's a bit of a mutual love between Andrea and the owner of Cagliari and all this type of stuff. But from the quotes I read, it seemed a little bit one-sided, like Nandez wants to come to England and he wants to come and play for Bielsa. There didn't appear to be any indication in there that Leeds want to sign him. Maybe a shovel full of salt with that one. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah. It's a silly season after all, where agents are trying to move the players around. So we'll see on that one. Alioski's been cleared by the FA over his silly face gesture versus Burnley. Particular funny moment, to be honest. So common sense has prevailed in that one. There didn't appear to be any underlying ulterior motive.
Well, he's
just
obviously
acting
not
like a child.
He's obviously not staying at Leeds then, because if he was, they'd have done something.
It's an interesting point. That might interesting point. We'll see.
He's not a Leeds what's point?
Yeah, true, mate. True. First preseason fixtures.
That whole thing is just pathetic, though, isn't it?
It's ridiculous.
Really strange.
It was weird at the time. We were trying to work out what was going on at the time, and you're thinking, and then as soon as you saw the footage, you went, "That's just Alioski being Alioski, isn't it?"
How embarrassing would you be if you're a Burnley player fan or someone who with the club? Someone's then complained because he's pulled a face.
Well, it was apparently Chris. I can't remember who told us this, but somebody had said that Chris Wood, who had just been subbed at the time or was getting subbed at the time, then came back down from where he was sat behind the dugouts and had a word with the fourth, and then the fourth dragged over the referee, and it was all just a bit hearsay. It was almost like Chinese whispers. It had gone around 4 or 5 different people by the sounds of it. So I think it all just got a little bit swept away in the moment of Burnley getting thrashed.
Maybe just Burnley getting thrashed and Chris Wood being a bit better, because all he did for that game was just try to be a battering ram and run into people.
Yeah.
The shithouse. Did he play with Alioski as well? Played with Alioski, didn't he? At Leeds?
Yeah.
They will have crossed over. Yeah. So how does he not know that Alioski's a giant man baby who would do things like that? That's ridiculous.
I could be wrong, but I'm sure that's what somebody said to me. And again, I don't know.
I'm more offended than that, to be honest.
To be fair, I thought Alioski did the right thing, because it could have got really heated. Obviously, there was the There was the fact that there was something said. Then there was, people saying, was it a spit? But, it could have kicked off even more. And in the end, he kind of almost diffused the situation by just pulling a silly face. And I thought that was quite good. And then to react and say that was a racist gesture. Like, what? Like, it just...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, mad.
Anyway. The first pre-season fixtures have been announced. Big games against Guiseley on the 27th. Blackburn on the 28th.
Which sold out in like seconds.
Yeah.
I saw the announcement and I'm thinking, all right, I've been to Guiseley a few times at pre-season. And then I looked like an hour later and it was like, all tickets have been sold out.
Yeah. You haven't got a gold membership for Guiseley, have you? So
no, that's a good point, yeah.
What you could do, mate, is you could try and get a trial at Guiseley, see if you can get a bench.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
It's an option.
Yeah, a trialist. Yeah.
Blackburn on the 28th, so there's a chance that we might see sort of mixed up squads in them two games.
He'll split the sides.
I've still got me and young Ben's tickets for Blackburn away at the end of the Championship season that obviously got cancelled for COVID. So I might just take my ticket there and just try and get in. Just try and get in. Yeah,
that's what they should do. They should say if you've got them tickets, you can come.
I don't know why I've still got them, but they're in the kitchen cupboard. Like April
mementos, mate. Mementos.
2020.
And then Fleetwood on the 30th of July. Interesting one with Fleetwood is obviously we've seen Ryan Edmondson go to Fleetwood. And I wonder if this is some part of the deal in there, maybe potentially. Or maybe I'm just completely making that up.
Is Luke Murphy there as well? Do you go there?
Is it Crew back? He's back at Crew, is he not?
Is he?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Lost track of where he's
similar.
Man with hair like alpaca. I'm sure he's back at Crew.
Yeah.
You've just been playing Football Manager too much, Gary. Like you sell a player, and one of the clauses is friendly with us.
Yeah, arrange friendly. Yeah.
I'm currently QPR, and I can't sell or buy anybody. Anyway, so pre-season friendlies are coming.
Murphy's at Crew.
Look at that knowledge. That's Football Manager knowledge for you.
That's
Football Manager knowledge. Yeah. Other news then. Harry Kane to City for £100 million. After his performances at the Euros, I'd want a receipt.
Yeah. I'd be going, let's buy Haaland instead.
Yeah. Well, apparently, there was one article that was saying they want Kane and Haaland.
Yeah.
What?
150 for Haaland and 100 for...
That's just greedy. It's just
greedy.
But other news...
The ironic thing about that is... only like a couple of weeks ago, I suppose City weren't much involved with it, but there are all these big teams doing the European Super League. We've not got enough money, and then they offer 100 million for a player. Yeah.
Also, the ironic thing with that is City have won the league pretty much at a canter without really playing any centre forwards, and then they'd go back to elite centre forwards. So
scoring the goals.
Almost like they're playing Football Manager and just going right. Okay, how can we mix it up? We've been playing without a striker. I'll play 4-4-2 next season. Let's see what we do with that. Let's go and buy a load of new players.
They've also activated in-game editor, aren't they? They're just adding zeros to bank balance. No, I don't use that, by the way. I'm a true Football Manager. So Seb, who we've had on before from Football Manager, no in-game editor, none of that. Sancho to Scummers for 75 million. That appears to be picking up a little bit of pace. I think it was released at advanced negotiations. I'm not sure what they are, but
they got to this stage last year.
I was going to say we've gone through all this before.
It'd be so funny if we get to the beginning of the season and he's not there.
Another bit of transfer news that I've not put on the notes, and I'm going to read this out, and I want you to tell me independently what the first thing that jumps into your head is, and I'll tell you what mine were. Izzy Brown is due to join Preston North End on a permanent deal when his Chelsea contract expires on the 1st of July. Raggy, go. First thing that jumps into your head. Raggy, what's the first thing that jumps into your head?
Who?
Izzy Brown, that kid who trained with Leeds for a bit.
Yeah, it was a joke. It was a bad joke. But no, I don't know.
Mine was pay cut.
Yeah,
right. He's joining Preston. He's joining Preston on 37 grand a week, is he?
Sure.
Or whatever he was on. So he's joining Preston on a full-term deal.
I chatting to my brother about like worst Bielsa signings, and he would not have it that Bielsa signed. Well, it was here when we signed Lewis Baker as well. It's like, no, I don't believe it. Bielsa wouldn't do that.
He really liked Baker as well.
Yeah, played him. Yeah.
It's like, could not believe that. Yeah.
In fact, he was quite upset when Baker went back to Chelsea, weren't he? He was very upset about it, actually. Yeah.
Why?
To be honest, with Lewis Baker, I know, like I said before, I know somebody who worked at Wednesday. He was obviously at Wednesday, and I was like, you know what? Give me the down low. And he's like, bags and bags of talent, but some other stuff that I can't mention on a podcast in case Lewis Baker's listening. But the thing that struck me was he can strike a free kick with both feet. Other than that, I weren't too sure what he did. I sort of didn't know what else he brought, but obviously Bielsa did.
Yeah.
It
goes under all of them, like him, Izzy Brown, and there's a few others that I guess they've had the high life at Chelsea, been paid 25 grand a week to float about in Championship, not doing much for the last sort of 5 years. It's reality now for Izzy Brown, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if it don't work out here, what'll be a pay cut at Preston? Where's it? Because I think it's only a year deal, isn't it? So where's it going to go from there? Because
don't live in his mansion that he's paid off all the time. That he's
maybe so.
You know.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably make a podcast.
Right, I've got one on this, Johnny, and obviously we've got a dog in a fight. I'm sick to death of hearing on mainstream radio. Check out such and such as podcast. Peter Crouch, Gary Lineker, fucking whoever else. And then us who've been grinding from start, making an extremely mediocre podcast week in, week out. You know,
150 episodes,
150 odd episodes, and we ain't got a big production team behind us. I've got a big bed behind me. It just pisses me off. Anyway, let's get a bit of this.
Raggy's Predictor.
Over to the main man. He's back this week for Raggy's Predictor.
It was, yeah. Not many people picked up points, to be honest. The 4-0 England for Scotland 0 that Ben predicted did not come off. Nobody got points for that because we all thought that England would actually do something. And erroneously, Mike thought that Scotland would win that game. So no one gets points there.
Weirdly, Mike were closer, to be honest.
I was going to say that. I was closer. Yeah. I think Ben should get minus point.
There's no points for closeness. We all pick up a point. The English fans pick up a point for saying that we would beat Czech Republic, but no one got that one as a 1-0. Mike gets 0 points for a 2-2.
Get in.
Prediction. So that leaves the standings of the Euros as Gary in the lead with 2, me and Ben with 1, and Mike yet to score. So obviously England will play Tuesday next week, isn't it? Tuesday, 5 o'clock. Obviously the games are going on right now, so we don't actually know who we will be playing. So we thought, just for a bit of a laugh, we'll just predict all of them, and then obviously only pull through those predictions. So,
Rags, Rags, can I just interject on about, like, you know, we like to do stuff off the cuff on this podcast, like the entire show. But I've just thought of a new feature. Whenever there's a goal, because there's a ticker tape scrolling across the bottom, we do a very Jeff Stelling, Chris Kamara type thing where we go to Ben and go, "There's been a goal, Ben," and Ben goes, "Has there?" So, Ben, there's just been a goal. Talk us through Benzema's goal for France.
Yeah, we're a penalty, and he just put it to sort of left at keeper. Keeper went.
Honestly,
to
mate,
right.
We're getting a BAFTA for this, I'm telling you. Anyway,
amazing.
back to you, Rags.
I wasn't really watching it, to be honest, but I think Mbappe got fouled for the penalty.
It's Chris
I was
Kamara
concentrating on the stream.
Fair enough. Right, so if Benzema's just scored for France, let's take it that we might be playing France. So predictions, Gary, if it is England versus France.
3-1 defeat.
Okay. Mike?
I'd back that. 3-1 France.
Ben?
2-1 England.
What? You've been drinking.
Based on what?
Based on 2-1 were my lucky ones at back end of last season, and I'm just going to go with England.
I reckon France would do us 2-0. Johnny, what do you reckon? We'll put
I'm with you, yeah. I'm with you. 2-0. 2-0 France on that.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Right, another team that I think, with how it stands, are currently bottom of the league, aren't they? But Germany, what if it was the Germans? I'll go first on this one. I reckon we'd get beat, but 2-1 on that one. Johnny?
I think I'm going to go 2-0 again. I just can't see goals at all.
Ben?
2-1 England.
Are you just going to go 2-1 England for them all?
Yep.
Mike?
I think it goes 1-1, and I think Germany go through on penalties.
Okay, yeah, these are only the
Standard,
90-minute scoreline.
Can I go for a bonus point?
No.
Defeat on penalties, Southgate to miss, and then to feature a Pizza advert a few months later with a brown paper bag on his head. No, I'm going to go, if we play Germany, we'll get beat 3-0. Ben's become Dutch, I think. Oh, no, he's back. Yeah, he went orange for a minute there, back in the game.
If it is Portugal, Ben, I'm guessing you're going 2-1 England.
I don't know. Yeah.
Gary?
2-0 Portugal. 2-0 Portugal.
2-0 Portugal. Okay. You know what? I reckon if we play Portugal, Ronaldo will score. I reckon. I don't know why. I reckon we might beat him, but it'd have to be penalties. So I'm going 1-1 in that. Mike?
Yeah, I think it'll be close as well. Yeah, I can see it. 2-0 Portugal.
Close to 2-0. Jonny?
I think that's the only one England will win. I think 1-0. I think they'll do a job on Ronaldo. I think Phillips will do a job on him. And 1-0 penalty. Let's put it even more precise.
Yeah, fair enough. And the Hungarians, the last but not least, if Hungary get that second berth. Who should we start with? Jonny, we'll start with you.
In fact, I think they could beat Hungary. I'll go 1-0 again. I'm not confident we're going to be scoring more than one in any game between now and the final if we get there.
Mike?
Hungary like to score first, don't they? I think, 1-0. 1-0.
1-0. I reckon England will win that. 2-0. Ben?
2-1 Hungary. No, 2-1 England.
and Gaz?
Yeah, 1-0 England, Raheem Sterling. He's the only person who can score.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Right then, we'll just have to see. We'll see which of those are going to go through. And,
so tune in next week to find out how we get on, and we'll obviously inform Jonny how he's got on next week. So we'll move straight into this.
Shit out of the week.
The Shithouse of the Week award, the long-running, long-standing favourite award that lots of people like to win. Not Gary Johnson, the other one, the little one. Lee Johnson, still the overall winner. I think he's won it about 30 times or something. Just been a bit of a shithouse. We've had numerous referees. We've even had some nice shithouses as well, but not too many of them. Who did we get shithouse of the century to? Or shithouse of the season? We get it to
Century,
Sky.
Jesus.
We get it to Sky, I think. We get it to Sky, yeah. So
lazy
this week's nominees.
Lazy pundits.
That's it, lazy pundits with it. So this week's nominees then are Gilmore for the isolation debacle. 2 England players required to isolate, but his teammates not.
I just don't get it. I don't get the whole situation. I don't. They said they'd captured it, talking for 20 minutes in the tunnel or something like that. Well,
he'd broken the bubble, hadn't he? He'd broken the bubble, that's what it was. Or the 2 England players had broken the bubble.
Yeah.
I get that, but like, well...
But surely the bubble should fail as well then, yeah.
Yeah, you just think... I get he's kind of trying to protect the squads and everything, but...
the real shithouse there is Public Health England, because they were the ones that... it's not the players, it's...
Made up the stupid rules.
Not called Public Health Scotland, is it?
No,
you're right.
No, Billy Gilmore's fine to play. That's if it was Public Health Scotland, it'd have been he can play. Bit 8. Give him some iron brew. Bit 8.
Iron brew sells everything. Yeah, it was a particular strange one that makes you scratch your head for sure. And then to make it even funnier, did Declan Rice and other West Ham player who
he was talking to Sue Fowl, wasn't he? Was it Sue?
So with a mask on for 20 minutes outside as though to make a point. But so we're going to stick that in there. Public Health England for being stupid. We'll have that. UEFA next up. They do feature sometimes in Shithouse of the Week for threatening to punish Manuel Neuer for wearing a rainbow armband. It is Pride Month at the moment, may I add, in Munich by claiming it was a political gesture.
And then came out with a really mealy-mouthed statement today saying we support the rainbow gesture, but to do it against Hungary was political. At the end of the day, if you haven't got the whole the whole thing is about equality. And if you if you're then saying no, you're banned from using that thing about equality at certain things because that's making it political, then what's the point of you having it in the fucking first place?
Equality is not political.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. 100%.
It's very, very
100%.
Very, very
No, it is, but it's just you've got to have it. You know,
Backwards. What an own goal! What an own goal! That was from UEFA.
I know.
When they like back bids for them and FIFA backing bids for like Brazil, Russia to host World Cups, and then they go on about Qatar as well. It's
exactly. Yeah.
It's when it suits, isn't it?
Terrible.
When it suits.
And obviously the ever-present COVID-19. I'll be honest, lads. I'm sticking to the rules still, but I'm becoming very, very COVID-19 jaded. I am absolutely sick to the tits of wearing masks. I'm sick to the tits of Good Morning Britain constantly ruining my morning. Every morning, just arguing about bollocks. Every single morning. I've even threatened to divorce my wife because I get up and she's been working nights and she puts Good Morning Britain on and I have to listen to them absolute cretins go on and on and on and on a bit more about
Why
COVID-19.
Just turn your TV off?
Because I get done. She makes me leave it on.
Why don't you put BBC Radio Leeds on?
Well, there you go.
I listen to it in car, to be fair.
Sounds like you're nominating your wife for shithouse rather than.
I would never do that.
Oh, yeah.
I would never do that.
That's all I'm saying.
Stop it. Raggy, stop throwing the grenade in. Stop it. My wife is listening, which she isn't. She don't listen to this ever. I don't mean that at all, cherub. Good Morning Britain are shithouses. Anyway, so I ran off on a tangent, and Raggy's throwing me under the bus. Thanks, Rags. Who are we getting it to then? COVID-19.
There's another one.
Graham Souness.
I think he was very Scotland. I guess he's Scottish anyway, but yeah, he was really bigging up Scotland, wasn't he?
To be fair, I was a little bit upset that Graham Souness didn't have to isolate after the Billy Gilmore debate because he was stuck up his arse for ages.
Yeah.
So why didn't he catch it?
Look, you can't have Graham Souness on as a pundit and not expect him to be pro-Scotland. Come on.
Yeah, true.
That's what you want from him.
That's like having Don Goodman on and expecting him not to be anti-Leeds, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. It's very similar. So, lads, who again? It's a COVID-19. Good Morning Britain. UEFA for rejecting
Good Morning Britain.
And Billy Gilmore, the isolation debacle, not necessarily. Billy Gilmore, who we getting it to?
UEFA for me.
Yeah. Clean sweep across the board. UEFA, you is crazy. Let's not do that anymore. So a couple of shout outs then and stuff before we wrap this up. Quick time to get your questions in if you've got any. Big shout out to Leeds Vikings and Timberwolf Clothing for dropping me off a Phillips Vikings t-shirt at my house on Sunday. Very kind of them. Go follow Timberwolf Clothing and Leeds Vikings on Instagram and on Twitter and Facebook, I think, as well. Go check them out. Timberwolf Clothing is a Leeds-based brand, so you're helping a local company if you're buying it from there. There's some Phillips ones. There's I think a Rafina one and a Bielsa one as well. So go check them out. Big shout out to them and a big thanks for dropping me a t-shirt off. Also, don't forget Krish and Anyagam, another local company, obviously knocking us some Talking Shut merchandise out. I purchased myself a Talking Shut t-shirt the other day, which hopefully I'll be adorning next week on the podcast. Go check Krish out and Anyagam's clothing as well. He's got loads of cool stuff on there. Some retro Leeds stuff and some throwbacks to the Champions League games as well, which are pretty cool. So go check them out. A big shout out to George Smith, MMA fighter. We've had him on the podcast before. Great lad. Leeds season ticket holder in the COP. He fights this Saturday on Cage Warriors 123, which is convenient, so I can remember it. On UFC Fight Pass, as he makes a return from, unfortunately, a defeat last time in a middleweight clash. You can catch it on UFC Fight Pass. Big shout out to George, massive Leeds fan, great lad as well. And a complete savage killer. So get on board and give George the support.
Or he'll be down.
I think, just from Rags, I'll even go as far as saying I think he's a quadruple hard bastard. And he often wears some Leeds stuff to come out to his fights as well, which is class. That brings us to an end of episode 150. A massive thanks to you, Jonny, for giving us your time, mate, and a little peek inside your bedroom, which is particularly nice. It's normally just my bedroom that we've got in the background here, but I'm glad you've come as well with the same vibe as me. Mate, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much for taking your time out and coming on tonight.
No, my pleasure, lads. Thanks for inviting me on. Anytime. Always happy to come on and chat whenever you need.
Absolutely, mate. Thanks very much. Big thanks to everybody else. Mike, I'm sorry that your national allegiance and now out of the first major I'm not going to go that far. That they're out the first major tournament in 23 years, but they'll always have that open top tour of drawing 0-0 England at Wembley.
At least as well. At least Cooper's back and he's not crocked.
True that. That is true, man. That is true. So yeah, thanks everybody who's tuned in. If you're listening back on a podcast, please like, subscribe, tell other people about it, share it, all that type of gubbins. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're still trying to grow it. We have took a dive a little bit on numbers lives. I think it's probably due to Euros, to be honest. Not that we've just got even more shitter, because I don't think you can get. I don't think you can get into negative shitness, to be honest. Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, big shout out. We'll be back next Wednesday. In fact, you guys will. I won't, because I'm joining my friend who is walking from Barnsley to Scotland. Mike, tapping into you here, for his friend who served with in the military, who got MND, basically. And my mate Ian is walking from his house in Barnsley up to Motherwell, I think it is, for MND UK. So I'm doing the first leg with him next Wednesday morning.
Fancy at all? Not fancy at all?
No, I couldn't get time off work, mate, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Convenient.
So yeah, conveniently. But fair play to him, and we'll share his Just Giving page on our Twitter as well if you want to chuck him a tag. I'm sure he'd really appreciate it. If you see him mooching around West Yorkshire, he'll be in head to toe in Van Gogh because they've just sponsored his event, Van Gogh outdoor gear. But he's also got a green flag that's got his old regimented. His regimental logo and his stuff on there. So if you see him mooching around, give him a beat, give him a wave, all that type of stuff. It's going to be one hell of a challenge for him. Camping out most at nights as well, although he has opted to take a hotel in some of the major cities because he don't want to be mistaken for somebody who's homeless and get robbed or something. So big shout out to him, Big Mac, great lad. Jonny, guys, thanks very much. Thanks for everybody who's tuned in, and we'll see you next week. So I'll see you there.
See you there.
Cheers.